The battlefield was burning. Smoke covered the sky and blackened the ground. Human soldier Ray Carter crawled through the ashes, his hands bleeding, his armor cracked. He had lost his squad hours ago in the surprise attack from the Drovak Empire. The Drovak were taller, faster, stronger. They had claws that could shred through metal and energy blades that hummed like thunder. But Ray wasn't looking for a fight anymore. He was looking for survivors. Ray stopped behind a broken vehicle and raised his rifle. Something was moving in the fire ahead. He expected an enemy, but instead, he found a Drovak male lying in the dirt, blood pouring from a deep chest wound. Ray should have ended it right there, but the alien's eyes were different wide. Panicked, begging, Ray cursed under his breath and lowered his weapon. Even after all the Drovak had done, he couldn't shoot someone who was already dying. He pulled a medkit from his belt. Quickly kneeling beside the alien, the Drovak winced in pain as Ray injected him with nanites and sealed the bleeding wound. "You'll live," Ray muttered, not sure why he even cared. The alien gripped Ray's wrist, his claws shaking. "You saved me." The alien growled, his voice thick and deep. Like gravel, Ray just stared at him. "Don't thank me yet. Get out of here before someone finishes the job." Ray turned to leave, but the Drovak grabbed his arm again. "My name is Korvac. I owe you everything, human." Ray pulled free and disappeared into the smoke, thinking it was over, but it wasn't. 2 days later, the war ended in an uneasy ceasefire. Humans and Drovak had lost too much. Both sides were tired, broken, and covered in scars that would never heal. Ray returned home, expecting silence and nightmares. Instead, he got a message. An armored Drovak shuttle landed outside his outpost camp. Out stepped Korvac alive, standing proud and flanked by 2 cloaked figures. Ray raised a brow. "You followed me?" Korvac knelt before him, claws pressed to the dirt. "You saved my life, human." Drovak never forget a life debt. Ray shrugged. "I didn't do it for a reward, but I must give you one." Korvac replied. The 2 cloaked figures stepped forward. One was a tall, elegant Drovak woman, sharp eyes, braided hair, posture like a queen. The other was younger, maybe 19, maybe 20, with soft features and curious golden eyes. "My wife. My daughter," Korvac said, bowing his head. "They are yours now by Drovak law." Ray blinked, heart thudding in his chest. You're giving me your family?" The younger woman stepped closer, her expression unreadable but calm. "If my father owes you his life, then I owe you my future." The older one nodded slowly, with pride but no hate in her eyes. "We accept the bond." Human. Ray was speechless. He had saved a life, but he had no idea that in doing so, he'd changed 3 more forever. Ray didn't know what to say. The war was over, but the world still felt strange. He stood facing 2 alien women who now looked to him not as a stranger, but as something more. Korvac had already stepped back, giving space without a word. The younger one tilted her head, observing Ray with interest. "I am Vela," she said softly, her voice like wind over glass. The older woman gave a respectful nod. "And I am Jir'na. I was Korvac's wife. Now I am yours by the law of oaths." Ray rubbed his forehead. Overwhelmed. "I don't even know what to do with this," he admitted. "I'm just a soldier." "I didn't ask for," Jir'na raised a hand gently. "It does not matter what you asked. Drovak honor runs through blood and spirit. You saved Korvac's life. His debt must be paid." Vela took a step forward, looking him directly in the eyes. "Do you reject us?" Ray shook his head slowly. "No, I just ... don't understand why anyone would give away their family like this." Jir'na's gaze softened. "In our culture, saving a life is sacred. Korvac is a war general. If he dies, his bloodline ends. You gave him more than breath. You gave us a future. Now that future belongs to you." Ray wasn't sure he believed in any of that, but the way they looked at him, it wasn't forced. There was no fear, no shame, no anger, only acceptance. He sighed and stepped back, motioning toward his shelter. "All right. Come inside. We'll talk there." The shelter was small, just 2 rooms. Steel walls, ration packs, and a dusty heater. But the 2 alien women entered without complaint, moving gracefully through the cramped space. Ray poured water for them, not sure what else to offer. Vela sat across from him, her fingers touching the rim of the cup, but not drinking. "Why did you save him?" she asked. Ray shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe because I was tired of killing. Maybe because he looked at me like a person, not an enemy." Jir'na nodded slowly. "Then you are not weak. You are rare." They stayed that night. Vela lay quietly in the corner, wrapped in a thick blanket, while Jir'na sat awake, watching the door. Ray couldn't sleep. His mind kept spinning. What was he supposed to do now? Be a husband? A protector? A host to 2 aliens who barely knew him? In the morning, Ray walked out early to gather food packs from the storage tent. He didn't expect to see Korvac waiting outside. The big Drovak stood with arms crossed, but his eyes were calm. "Did they accept you?" he asked. Ray looked away. "I think so. I'm still trying to accept it myself." Korvac nodded. "They are strong. They will not burden you. In time, they will be loyal to you. Vela is still young, but she is quick to learn. Jir'na is wise." Ray frowned. "Aren't you afraid of losing them?" "I lost them the day I almost died," Korvac said quietly. "Now they live, and they are safe. That is more than I could hope for." Ray didn't argue. He returned to the shelter, arms full of rations. Jir'na helped him unpack while Vela finally smiled, just a little. At the smell of cooked protein, it was strange, but it wasn't bad. The days passed slowly. Vela asked many questions. She was curious about Earth, about humans, about Ray's childhood. Ray showed her old photos on his pad: mountains, rivers, trees. She was fascinated by rain. "I've never seen it fall," she whispered. "We only had ash and smoke on our homeworld." Jir'na stayed quiet most of the time, but she began organizing Ray's shelter, cleaning, arranging supplies, fixing broken wiring. She worked without being asked, without complaint. Ray began to feel something shift. He no longer saw them as strangers. They weren't just repayment for a debt anymore. They were part of his space, his silence, his peace. And when Vela curled up in the corner each night, her golden eyes still watching him before sleep, something inside Ray softened. He wasn't used to being looked at like that. Not with fear, not with pity, but with trust. Maybe something real had started to grow. Maybe a new kind of family was beginning. Vela sat near the heater, holding Ray's old jacket in her lap. It was too big for her, but she seemed to like the smell of it. She watched him fix the radio panel again. Wires scattered across the table. "You do this every morning," she said. Ray grinned without looking up. "I want to reach command. See if they remember I exist." Jir'na stepped in from outside, carrying a small pouch of berries she had found near the mountain wall. Ray blinked. "Where'd you get those?" Jir'na placed them carefully on the table. "I tracked a small creature that was feeding on them. They're edible." "Your scanner confirmed." Ray picked up a berry and smiled. "You're full of surprises." That evening, as the sky turned a dull red, the wind carried something different. Not just ash or cold, something electric. Something alive. Ray stepped outside and looked up the ridge. Through his scope, he spotted a ship. It wasn't Drovak, and it wasn't human military either. The hull was blackened, rusted, marked with scavenger symbols. Pirates. Ray rushed back inside and locked the door. "Pack what you can," he said quickly. "We have company, and not the good kind." Jir'na's face hardened. "Scavengers?" Ray nodded. 4 of them. They'll sweep the valley for survivors or scrap. They won't ask questions. They won't care what side you fought on. Vela stood quickly, grabbing a small knife from her belt. "I'll fight," she said firmly. Ray placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to." Let me handle this. But Vela didn't back down. We are yours. If you fall, we fall too. Ray didn't have time to argue. He set up a trip mine at the edge of the camp and climbed to the observation point with his rifle. The scavenger group was already spreading out, tall figures in patched armor, carrying plasma drills and bone blades. Ray took a breath, adjusted his scope, and aimed. The first shot dropped one of them. The others scattered, shouting and ducking behind rocks. Ray stayed calm, reloading with muscle memory. Behind him, Jir'na moved like a shadow, taking a second rifle from the armory box. You know how to use that? He asked. I trained Drovak before he was a soldier, she replied. Ray couldn't help but smile. They were cornered, outnumbered, and surrounded, yet strangely, he didn't feel alone. The fight lasted less than 20 minutes. 3 of the scavengers were dead, and the 4th escaped over the ridge. Bleeding, Ray descended from the rock slowly, careful not to lower his guard. Vela ran to him and hugged him tightly, arms around his chest, not letting go. I thought you were gone, she whispered. He rested his hand on her back, heartbeat still racing. I'm here. Jir'na joined them, calm and focused, her rifle still warm in her hands. They'll be back, she warned. Ray nodded. They always come back. But next time we'll be ready. That night, they buried the dead far from the shelter and burned the bodies. Drovak tradition mixed with human habit. Vela placed a stone over each shallow grave, whispering something in her native tongue. Ray stood beside her, watching quietly. You pray? He asked. It's not a prayer, she replied. It's a promise that we remember. Ray sat near the fire later, sharpening his blade. Jir'na sat beside him with a cup of warm tea. You protect us without question, she said. You could have walked away. Ray looked into the flames. So could you, she smiled. And for the first time, it reached her eyes. We did not choose to be given to you, human, but now I do not regret it. Vela curled up beside Ray's bedroll later that night, resting her head on his leg. Ray brushed her hair back gently, surprised at how natural it felt. In just a few days, everything had changed. The war was over, but something new had begun. Not just survival, but connection, loyalty, and maybe even something deeper, something that couldn't be bought, traded, or given by law. It had to be earned, and Ray had started to earn it, one moment at a time. Days passed, but peace never lasted long in the outer zones. Ray spent most of his time reinforcing the shelter walls, adding new sensors, and digging backup trenches. Vela helped him carry metal sheets and learn to use the welding torch. Jir'na watched the skies every night, noting strange blinking lights near the horizon. Something was coming. Ray checked the radio again and again, but still no signal from Central Command. Either they were forgotten, or someone had made sure they stayed isolated. Then, one evening, the alert beacons turned red. A signal had been triggered far outside the perimeter, just near the ridge where the scavengers had fled. Ray read the readings. One life form. Large, armored, not human, not Drovak. Jir'na walked over and stared at the screen. That's not a scavenger, she said quietly. Ray nodded. It's something else. And it's headed straight for us. They prepared quickly. Ray and Jir'na manned the watchpost while Vela stayed below, ready to close the shelter if needed. An hour later, a shape appeared through the dust. It moved like a predator, slow, heavy, confident. Ray raised his rifle but didn't fire. He had never seen anything like it. The creature was tall, wrapped in plated armor that shimmered like stone, and carried no weapon, just claws and a wide blade made from bone. It stopped just outside their defense grid and stared at Ray. You are the human who took the Drovak bloodline, it said in a deep, echoing voice. Ray frowned. I didn't take anything. I saved a life. That life was tied to honor, the creature growled. And that honor now threatens the old ways. The clans are watching. They do not like what they see. Ray tightened his grip on the rifle. What do they see? They see a human wearing the legacy of a Drovak general. They see 2 females under your roof. They see peace where there should be punishment. Jir'na stepped forward beside Ray, calm and steady. We follow the oath. It was done in the eyes of our ancestors. The creature's eyes burned. Then prove the oath is worthy, or I will end it. It dropped a small beacon on the ground and turned away. You have 3 nights. After that, you will answer by blood. Then it vanished into the dust, like a ghost wrapped in armor. Back inside, Ray threw the beacon on the Weka table. It displayed a glowing map and a countdown. Vela stared at it with wide eyes. That is a trial stone. Only high clans use it. If we fail the trial, they will take us away or kill us all. Ray looked at her. Then Jir'na, then the map. Then we win the trial. Jir'na's expression was unreadable. You are human. They will test you like a beast, not a warrior. They want you to fail. Ray's voice was firm. Then I won't give them what they want. The next morning, they traveled to the trial grounds marked by the beacon. It was a flat valley with sharp stones, black dust, and deep pits. 3 armored warriors waited at the far end. 2 Drovak males and 1 female with a spear as long as a human's body. The judge stood in the center, the armored ghost from before. The trial is simple, he said. Survive until the sun falls. Defend what you have claimed. If you fall, the claim is void. Ray nodded once. Let's get on with it. They gave him no weapon but a staff. Old and cracked, he didn't complain. He stepped into the ring and stood tall as the first. Drovak warrior charged him. The hit came fast. But Ray rolled to the side and used the staff to sweep the enemy's leg. He fought with more instinct than skill. Dodging, blocking, countering. Hours passed. One battle after another. He was bruised, bleeding, barely standing, yet he did not fall. Vela screamed when the last warrior slammed Ray to the ground. His blade aimed at his chest, but Ray twisted, grabbed a handful of dirt, and threw it into the warrior's face. Then he struck the back of his knee and sent him crashing to the stone. The crowd that had gathered in the shadows fell silent. The judge walked forward and raised a hand. The claim holds, he said. Ray collapsed to one knee, exhausted but breathing. Vela ran to him, her arms tight around his shoulders. You did it, she whispered. You made them see you. Ray smiled weakly. No, I made them see us. Ray could barely move. His body ached, ribs sore, knuckles torn open from the fight. But when he looked at Vela clinging to his arm, and Jir'na standing tall beside him, he felt stronger than ever. They walked back to the shelter together, slow and silent, passing small Drovak patrols along the way. None of the aliens looked at Ray with hate anymore. They looked with respect or maybe fear. By surviving the trial, he had done something no other human had ever done. He had defended a Drovak bloodline with his bare hands. At the shelter, Ray rested while Jir'na treated his wounds. Her hands were firm but gentle, wrapping his chest in clean bandages. You should be dead, she said quietly. Ray chuckled. You're not the first to say that. Vela brought water, kneeling beside him, eyes wide with admiration. You were like a shadow dancer, she said, quick and strong. Even the wind was afraid of you. Ray grinned. That's a lot coming from someone who sleeps with a knife under her pillow. Jir'na raised an eyebrow at Vela, who shrugged, just in case. They shared a quiet laugh, the first in days, but the peace didn't last. 2 nights later, a new ship landed near their camp, this one marked with the Drovak royal seal. A delegation of warriors and elders stepped out, led by a tall, pale female with silver tattoos across her face. Ray stood outside the shelter as they approached. The woman spoke in perfect human tongue. I am High Matron Celia of Clan Tkar. I come not to challenge, but to offer a proposal. Ray didn't trust her, but he stayed calm. Speak. She studied him carefully. You have proven your strength and your honor. The clans watch with interest, but not all are pleased. Some Believe your victory must serve a purpose. Ray narrowed his eyes. And what purpose would that be? Celia stepped closer, her voice quiet. A union. Between you and a Drovak of noble standing, not Jir'na. Not Vela, one chosen by the HFY elders. A political bond. Ray's jaw tightened. I already have a bond. You were gifted a life debt. Not a throne, Celia said sharply. But now you sit on one whether you want it or not. That makes you dangerous or useful, Jir'na stepped out of the shelter, holding a blade at her side. We are not bargaining pieces, she said coldly. Vela joined her mother, her voice firm. You had your trial. You lost, leave us be. Celia's face remained still, unreadable. Refuse this offer, and the clans may begin to turn against you again. One human cannot hold back the tide forever. Ray stepped between them. Then let them come. I didn't bleed in your trial just to sell out the people who stood by me. Celia stared for a long time, then turned and walked back to her shuttle. Her final words hung in the air like smoke. The galaxy is watching, human. One day, it may choose not to look kindly. When they were gone, Ray sat alone outside, staring at the stars. Jir'na joined him, wrapping a warm shawl over his shoulders. You refused power for us, she said. I didn't want power, he replied. I wanted peace. I wanted a life. And I found one with you. Vela came and sat on his other side, resting her head on his shoulder. You could have had a crown, she whispered. Ray smiled. I already have 2 queens. They sat in silence, the night cool and calm, but in the distance, the hum of ships grew louder, more scouts, more eyes, more politics waiting to strike. Ray knew this was only the beginning. Being a hero had made him a symbol, and symbols were easy to admire, but also easy to destroy. Would protect them, no matter what it took, not because of a debt, not because of a law, but because he had come to love them, and that made him more dangerous than any warrior the clans could send. The sky turned black before sunrise. Ray woke early, sensing something wrong before the alarm even sounded. The motion sensors blinked red, and the outer cameras were down. He grabbed his rifle and ran to the lookout post. In the valley below, dark shapes were moving, dozens of warriors, armored and silent. Forming a wide circle around the shelter, Vela joined him, eyes wide but steady. They didn't send a trial this time, she said. They came to take everything. Ray's jaw clenched. This wasn't a warning or a message, it was war. Jir'na checked the weapons and passed out the last energy cells. We hold the shelter. We defend our ground. No surrender, Ray nodded. This isn't about honor anymore. This is about survival. The first wave came fast. Screaming warriors with burning blades charged from both sides, expecting fear, panic, retreat. They got none of it. Ray stood his ground, firing clean and fast, each shot dropping a target before it reached the walls. Jir'na moved like a storm, blade flashing, striking with perfect control. Vela ducked, rolled, and stabbed with fierce speed, protecting Ray's back. They fought as one. By midday, the battlefield was littered with scorched ground and broken weapons, but more enemies kept coming. Ray's leg was bleeding, and his arms trembled from exhaustion. Still he didn't stop. At the center of the assault stood Celia, calm and untouched, her guards protecting her like a living shield. She stepped forward and called out, "Enough! Stop this now, and I will spare your lives. Give up. The females in the bloodline ends with dignity." Ray spat blood onto the dirt. "You're not taking them. Not while I breathe." Celia's eyes narrowed. "Then you will die with them." Just as her forces moved again, a sound cut through the chaos deep, rising, mechanical. A shuttle appeared above the ridge, heavy with Drovak markings. Korvac's personal crest shining bright on the hull. It landed hard, kicking up smoke, and from it stepped Korvak himself, wearing a commander's cape and holding a declaration in his clawed hand. Stand down! He roared. The attackers hesitated. Celia's eyes widened. You are no longer general. You gave up your place. I gave my life for a code, Drovak growled. And that code is still sacred. This man saved me. His life is protected. Under high oath. If you break it, you shame all the clans. Silence followed his words. Then warriors slowly began lowering their weapons. One by one, they stepped back, unsure. Celia stared at Drovak, hate burning in her eyes. This isn't over, she hissed. The clans won't forget this insult. Ray limped forward and looked her dead in the eyes. Then let them remember the man who stood when others bowed. Celia turned and vanished with her guards, her pride in pieces. Drovak approached Ray, nodding with quiet respect. You earned your place, human. You didn't just accept our law. You lived it better than most of us ever did. Ray looked at Jir'na and Vela, both standing proudly beside him, bloodied but alive. I wasn't fighting for honor, he said. I was fighting for my family. Drovak smiled. Then you are truly Drovak now. Days later, the elders sent a formal letter. Ray's trial and loyalty had been recognized across the clans. He was officially granted protector status. His bond with Jir'na and Vela sealed by Drovak law and spirit. They rebuilt the shelter stronger. Ray planted new seeds with Vela, while Jir'na trained the younger ones from nearby villages in defense. No one questioned his place again. He had come as a soldier, but he stayed as a guardian, a husband, and a symbol of something far bigger than war or blood. A human had saved a life and in return, built a new one worth dying for. And this time, no one would ever take it away.